Now, if you're trying to figure out what are we doing, I pulled this next video because in the message, for the whole message, we're going to talk about September 11th. We're going to talk about some things that help you remember, other things you don't know, some awesome things that are happening as a result of even the difficulty and the tragedy, what God has done to do some good out of it.
Yeah.
And this family is just one example of it. So I figured it would be important today to give you the full rundown on Tunnel to Towers and how it got started and what's happening in the pre-show. There'll be more in the message, but let's go ahead and start right now with a little help you understand moment with Tunnel to Towers recap. Watch this.
A day of family bonding turned into a day of family tragedy. The attacks on the World Trade Center came blaring over Stephen Siller's radio, halting his trip to play golf with his three brothers. Without hesitation, he turned his truck around and raced toward the burning towers, but was stopped at the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. Siller would not be deterred from his duty to save lives. He strapped on 60 pounds of his firefighting gear and ran through the tunnel and into history.
I'm sure he was running and saying, God, you know, I have children, but his job was to save people, and that overcame everything.
The building went down, and I turned to my mother-in-law, and I said, Nancy, I think I just lost my brother.
Stephen Siller, along with 342 of his firefighting brethren, perished on that fateful day, along with close to 3,000 Americans. He unselfishly paid the ultimate sacrifice with one thought in mind: to save as many people as he could.
His heroism every day led him up to that point where I don't think it was too much of a decision because he always did the right thing.
And we know he was, not afraid. And even though he had concerns for his family, we knew somehow he would figure a way to get there. So we're very proud.
So when that decision came, I think for him it was pretty quick, in my opinion, because that's who he was.
Just think what was going through his mind that day. Got to the mouth of the tunnel, he wanted to get there in the worst way, and he was faced with a decision. Do I wait for other people? How do I get through? Or do I strap 60 pounds of gear on my back and run through the tunnel? And obviously, because he made that heroic run, just think of all the lives that he's changed since that day.
The Siller family formed the Tunnel to Towers Foundation, has raised millions of dollars in their brother's name, and has used those funds to help thousands of people over the years.
One of the things that I remember mostly is Frank said shortly after Stephen died, he said, I think we should start a foundation. And I was like, start a foundation? I never, it just seemed unbelievable.
As the beginning of the foundation started, we did start on a smaller scale. We were helping people on Staten Island.
And in the beginning, we had very modest expectations. We just wanted to help. And in our name was Let Us Do Good. And we did want to do good in Stephen's name.
We got together and helped to raise $1.5 million. And to me, that was enormous. I didn't think we'd ever do anything bigger than that.
We were determined not to let Stephen die in vain, and not to let those poor souls who died be forgotten.
It was such a great loss for us as a family. We just wanted to do something, and we wanted to honor what Stephen did that day.
And our pain was great, all of us. We had terrible pain, but it really did ease some of it to be able to help others.
He is our hero, and he is our inspiration.
All right,
Wow.
Angie, see, that's what it's all about right there.
Great story.
Well, what's going to be really cool is the connection to Do Good, because when I was looking through and figuring out what we were going to do today, it's pretty crazy to hear how they focused on while we still have time, let us do good. That was his mantra. I mean, and so that firefighter was always trying to do it, and then obviously in the last moments of his life, did good at a level that is the ultimate sacrifice.
Right.
But pretty cool how his family, though, didn't just sit back, man. They started the foundation, had this huge impact, and that's why we're selling the shirts today. That's why we're asking in the message to actually make a donation. For $11 a month, you can sponsor the Do Good Village. You can help a veteran or a first responder who lost someone in the line of duty to have a home paid for, mortgage-free. So that's what we're going to be talking about in the message. I don't want to give all that away, but it gives you a little bit of idea of why it's so important to us and why we're honored to do what we're doing today.
Definitely.
So let's go back into where were you? September 11th. You said you've already talked about it, but
Yeah, we talked about it once on pre-show, but I was sitting on the couch. I was pregnant with Hannah, our firstborn. I was sitting on the couch waiting for somebody to come, like, help me clean something. And it happened, and I was watching it. I had just turned it on, and then you called me. You said, you got to have the TV on. You got to have the TV on. I was like, I got it on. I'm looking. I'm watching.
Yeah. I'll just
about
never
you?
forget. Yeah, well, because I was working at First Bossier, so I had just left. We didn't watch the news when we got up that morning.
Yeah.
I got on the I-49 headed to north to First Bossier to go to work, and I listened to ESPN radio. All right, so while the ESPN radio on, I hear them come in and they get real somber. ESPN, it's what's interesting. It's always weird for me because it's around my birthday. It's only 2 days
Yeah.
after my birthday. It's the start of football season, which I love, NFL football season. So I was listening to ESPN, getting all excited and everything, and boy, they were just somber.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, what's going on? You know, and then
Right.
they're like, they started to give these updates. So when I finally got to the office, because I don't even think I had a cell phone at that time, I called you.
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, you got to turn on the TV. And Daniel Dooley, who's here, and Chip, and all of us, at that time, we had a media room. It had all these TVs in it
Right.
for the broadcast, for First Bossier's broadcast. And we turned every TV on to the news. And we were watching all the different newscasts. And those moments and those memories are crazy. But the craziest is as we're reflecting and looking at all this, Clyde Matthews, who Bryson Matthews taught our kids at Benton, whatever, his dad calls, and I don't know, again, how we knew this or how he knew how to get a hold of us, but he said, y'all need to run outside right now
Yeah.
because Air Force One is flying in over Bossier City right
There
now.
it
And he
is,
was
yeah.
running north of town. And he was a triathlete, so he
Oh,
was
yeah.
out training or whatever, and he goes, man, I looked up and Air Force One comes over my head with two
Crazy.
F-16s on its wings. So we run outside, all of us, and watch, Air Force One land.
Right.
In the end, what was the craziest thing, and I
This
don't
is
talk about
such
this
crazy-
message, this
yeah.
is just pre-show
Yeah,
only,
backstage.
is that the F-16 circled Bossier City while it was on the ground.
Oh, amazing.
So like we were outside, and they were just circling above our heads, and we were going, man, what's going on? Because at the time, the news was coming on and saying, we don't know where our president is. He left
Right.
Florida and he
We're
got
like,
up. And we're like,
he's here.
yeah, we're like, we do. And then
Yeah.
it made us nervous once we found out he was
Yes.
at Barksdale. We're like, oh my gosh,
Right.
what is this going to be like or what's going to happen?
it's
And
pretty amazing that he came here.
yeah, so then me, Chip, I don't know if Daniel Dooley, I'd have to find out if he did or not, but we climbed the steeple
Yes, I
at
remember
First Bossier
this.
and got all the way to the top and got a camera.
Right.
And we watched Air Force One take off. We videoed Air
You
Force
did
One
tell me
leaving
about
Bossier.
that, yeah.
But what was crazy, it burned up in the fire. We ain't got no video footage of it. But we literally saw him land and saw him take off. And I can say in my 53 years now, most patriotic moment of my life is when I saw Air Force One come in.
Oh, yeah.
It brings something out in you when
Yes.
you're going, okay, we're being attacked.
Yeah.
Our president is here. We're going to figure it out. Now, one funny story about Barksdale and Air Force One. George Bush tells a story that when he was on Barksdale Air Force Base and he was being transported from Air Force One to the room where he was going to address the nation, that the kid driving the van, he just was driving. They didn't have any limos or anything. They didn't have the presidential limo. They didn't have
Yeah,
anything.
it was
They just
so
had
short
a
notice.
Air Force van.
Yeah.
They said, George Bush said, the whole day was scary. He said, but the scariest is getting in the van with that kid because he
kid.
said he almost killed me. He was driving so
So
fast
erratic.
and reckless because he didn't have any idea. I don't know
Yeah.
what airman it was, but it was like, you're driving the president from here to there. But if you ever look at the history of that moment, George Bush will talk about that.
Right.
It's just kind of funny. But
You know I love George
but
Bush.
9/11's linked to right here in this town.
I know, it's amazing.
It really
and
is.
the country was really drawn together then.
Yeah.
It's amazing how things have.
Yes. Well, that's what I'm going to talk about today. Maybe, just maybe, we can find some hope today as we go through this message.